I know I'm late, but I finally got around to playing and finishing this game, and this time, the story delves even deeper into the minds of its protagonists. Alan, once a best selling crime fiction author, has been missing for over a decade, presumed dead. However, we the players know that he has been trapped in a nightmarish alternate reality, struggling to escape while battling his inner demons and a malevolent force known as the Dark Presence. Meanwhile, our new protagonist to the series, Saga Anderson, arrives in Bright Falls to investigate a series of ritualistic murders only to be drawn into the same supernatural nightmare that had snared Alan. I played the first game over a decade ago when I was still a teenager in high school, and it was actually one of the first games I played in the horror game genre. Alan Wake's wife, Alice, does disappear under mysterious circumstances, and the first game is about us trying to find her. Alan's search for her leads him to the serene yet sinister town of Bright Falls. Now, although there is a supernatural element that overshadows this story, influencing everyone and everything, we can still view this as a psychological horror experience, one in which we don't just blame the dark presence for the mental anguishes our characters experience. This, at the very least, enables us to analyze how this dark power terrorizes and destroys our character's psyche. For those who don't know what the dark presence is, the simplified answer is that it is the primary antagonist in the Alan Wake series, the main thing that players have to go up against. This evil and supernatural entity has the power to manipulate reality, altering the world to create nightmarish scenarios and distorted locations. It often uses this to isolate and torment its victims. It can also exert influence over people, manipulating their thoughts and actions, and if it weakens them enough, it could outright possess them and turn them into what is known in the game as the Taken. The Dark Presence feeds on fear, despair, and negativity, and it is capable of warping the environment and influencing people's minds. I would like to emphasize that the darkness takes the anxieties and doubts a person already has and amplifies it in order to bring a person's mind to ruin. The Dark Presence thrives on negative emotions, using fear, paranoia, and despair to weaken and control its victims, making them more susceptible to its influence. In Alan Wake, the Dark Presence initially attempts to use Alan's creative powers as a writer to escape the dark place and enter the real world fully. It does this by trying to corrupt Alan's writings and manipulate events to its advantage. The Dark Presence is depicted as a formless, shadowy entity, often represented by swirling darkness. In Alan Wake 2, the Dark Presence continues to play a central role, with its influence spreading throughout Bright Falls and affecting both the town's residents and the protagonists, Alan and Saga. Its manipulation of reality, creation of the Taken, and connection to the mystical elements of the game's world make it a formidable and eerie antagonist. Throughout the game, Alan's mental state is depicted through increasingly disjointed and surreal experiences, mirroring his deteriorating grasp on reality. In Alan Wake 2, Alan is now trapped in the Dark Place, a dark and demented alternate dimension shaped by his own mind and the Dark Presence. For 13 years, Alan has been trying to write himself out of this dark realm. This concept involves using his skills as an author to alter the dimension around him within the Dark Place, because here, his words have that kind of power. In this world, Alan's written words can influence events and reshape the environment. The Dark Place is a realm where creativity, especially written narratives, can become tangible and alter reality. Alan attempts to craft stories and plot elements that can lead to his escape. However, this task is fraught with challenges as the Dark Place twists and distorts his intentions. One of these said challenges rises out of the darkness in the form of Scratch. Scratch is Alan's sinister doppelganger, who was created by the Dark Presence and is the embodiment of all the negativity and darkness that is inside of Alan. This dark alter ego constantly undermines us at every available turn throughout the entire game, complicating our way out. As a symbol of duality within Alan, Scratch's ultimate goal is to replace him and perpetuate the spread of darkness in the real world. The portrayal of Scratch aligns closely with the concept of dissociative identity disorder, or DID, formerly known as multiple personality disorder. DID is characterized by the presence of two or more distinct personality states or identities, each with its own pattern of perceiving, relating to, and thinking about the environment and self. The existence of Scratch causes significant distress and impairment to Alan Wake, another identifier attributable to DID, as Scratch actively works against him, undermining him and causing harm to his relationships and mental state. Alan also presents recurring gaps in his memories, another hallmark of DID, where Alan often struggles to recollect events due to his fractured mind. Alan's psychological state is heavily influenced by this struggle. He faces paranoia while trying to navigate a world where his fears and thoughts can manifest dangerously. The challenge is not just to write stories that lead to freedom, but to do so without succumbing to the influence of the dark presence or his own darker nature. Those suffering from paranoid personality disorder are often suspicious and reluctant to confide in others, and they're often found reading hidden, threatening meanings into benign events. The most interesting thing about how paranoia is portrayed in the game is that it extends beyond the in-game reality and bleeds into our own. As the player, I could feel and experience this paranoia, and I would even exhibit those behaviors in the game. Most notably when in the dark place, where we're faced with these dark shades that are all around us. Sometimes they just stare, other times they attack, not knowing when or if they were going to attack, because sometimes they would walk up to us and then just disappear, created this deep-seated sense of suspicion. A paranoia I would begin to relate to as Alan journeys through the dark place. This pervasive suspicion is evident in his interactions with other characters, where he frequently doubts their intentions and fears betrayal. There's a scene that happens early on in the game, where Alan Wake is being interrogated by the detectives, and even though Saga is there to help him and help out the town, Alan isn't exactly forthcoming with all of the information. He decides to keep a manuscript page to himself, one that could help out the investigation and help solve the entire problem. He only shares it when he's confronted directly about it, and even then he still remains reluctant. This further reflects Alan's paranoia. Even ordinary events around him are consistently interpreted as veiled threats, such as when he sees messages in the environment that he believes are directed at him by malevolent entities. This was also a notably well-executed decision made by the game developers to instill paranoia within the players and to add to the psychological horror elements in the game. Strewn throughout the game on everyday items, whether it's a poster or graffiti on the wall, we see hints and messages that make it feel as if though the dark presence is trying to tell us something, maybe even trying to taunt us. It's like the messages really were made for Alan, for us. Philip K. Dick, a renowned science fiction author with works that directly inspired films like Total Recall and Blade Runner, experienced significant paranoia and other mental health challenges throughout his life, particularly during the 1970s. Mind you, this guy did a lot of drugs. He reported experiencing hallucinations and intense paranoid delusions, believing he was under surveillance by government entities and even communicating with an extraterrestrial or divine intelligence known as VALIS, or Vast Active Living Intelligence System. Alan Wake, dealing with his own struggles of reality and identity, also battles the lingering effects of trauma. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, is marked by exposure to actual or threatened death, serious injury, or anything heavily traumatic. with symptoms including recurrent involuntary and intrusive distressing memories, hypervigilance, or negative changes in thinking and mood. Alan was trapped in the dark place, being tortured and tormented both psychologically and physically by the dark presence for 13 years. He was stuck in a never ending, despairing, dark loop, frantically writing, hoping to escape. He often has involuntary, horrific flashbacks about the dark presence, reliving the traumatic events of being trapped and toyed with in the dark place. Another example is how Alan seems to always be in a panic state and on edge, even after escaping the dark place. He never seems at ease, like he's still stuck there in those dark moments. He also always seems to be on high alert and reactive to anything as if to anticipate danger. And overall, Alan's demeanor is always on the air of negative and serious, yet understandably so. Alan's PTSD mirrors the experiences of soldiers and trauma survivors. For example, Tim O'Brien is a well-known author with PTSD. O'Brien's experiences as a soldier in the Vietnam War deeply affected him, leading to long-term psychological challenges. His novel, The Things They Carry, draws heavily from his own experiences and the emotional burdens carried by soldiers during and after the war. As an FBI agent, Saga arrives in the enigmatic town of Bright Falls to investigate a series of murders, which quickly turns into supernatural occurrences. Her character contrasts with Alan's more introspective and troubled persona as she plays the more pragmatic role in the game. Saga's determination, intelligence, and investigative skills make her an essential player in unraveling the mysteries surrounding the dark presence and the events that unfold within Bright Falls. One of the unique aspects of Saga's character is her use of a mind palace, a mental construct that allows her to organize and process information crucial to her investigations. When I first saw this in the game, I immediately thought of Sherlock Holmes, who is also a fictional detective that uses this technique. For Sherlock, the Mind Palace is a method of memory enhancement based on visualization of complex ideas in an imagined spatial structure. It's a way to store and organize vast amounts of information, allowing him to recall details with incredible precision. Saga's Mind Palace functions the same way, providing her with a mental space where she can piece together clues, analyze evidence, develop theories, and even do this really cool thing called profiling in the game. Essentially, Saga interrogates people mentally, almost like seeing into their minds, and with certain characters, she can even have mental conversations. This technique is invaluable in a setting as chaotic and supernatural as Bright Falls, where reality is often distorted and the truth can be elusive. The Mind Palace serves as a narrative device that allows players to delve deeper into Saga's thought processes, making her a more relatable and compelling character. It also emphasizes the cerebral nature of her investigation, contrasting with the more action-oriented aspects of the game. Saga's journey begins with her arrival in Bright Falls, where she immediately senses something is amiss. The weird and unnatural phenomena she encounters start to take a toll on her mental health, leading to some key disorders. Adjustment disorder is a mental health condition that arises in response to a significant life change or stressor, leading to emotional or behavioral issues. These symptoms cause marked distress and impairment in social, occupational, and other important areas of functioning. This can lead to anxiety, depression, and just overall difficulty coping. The side effects of adjustment disorder are more intense than typical reactions to everyday stress. Unlike PTSD, which is triggered by severe trauma, adjustment disorder can result from various stressors such as job stress, relationship issues, or having your known and logical world rattled by otherworldly dark forces in Bright Falls, entering a depressing and horrific alternate dimension devoid of light, having the guy you're saving literally rewrite your reality and history, causing you to lose your daughter and husband, all while meeting people in a town you've never been to who seem to know exactly who you are and everything about you because in this rewritten reality, you grew up there. And let's not forget about the two uncles she didn't know that she had who were in an old famous rock and roll band. That's a lot to adjust to in such a short time, and it does affect her ability to effectively perform as a detective. Later on in the game, the Dark Presence attempts to mentally destabilize Saga by trapping her within her own mind palace and then feeding her these anxieties and doubts, like she wasn't a good mother, or that she was a bad detective, or that everything bad that is happening is her fault. However, Saga is able to show how powerful she really is by doing something that took Alan 13 years to do. She doesn't succumb to these negative thoughts and emotions, she defeats the darkness within, and she walks right out of the trap the Dark Presence set for her. And again, I really want to emphasize the fact that this took Saga a relatively short amount of time, especially when you consider that it took Alan over a decade to do the same. This is a testament to how determined Saga is and how mentally immovable she is. As Saga delves deeper into her investigation, she begins to experience a secondary trauma, cognitive dissonance, which occurs when an individual experiences psychological stress due to holding two or more contradictory beliefs, values, or attitudes simultaneously. Saga's logical, evidence-based approach to her FBI work conflicts sharply with the supernatural events she encounters, leading to significant cognitive dissonance. In her mind, pragmatism is clashing with the illogical. This internal conflict causes her considerable distress as she struggles to implement her professional training with the inexplicable phenomena around her. Saga's cognitive dissonance is similar to that experienced by scientists like Galileo Galilei, who faced psychological stress reconciling his observations with the established beliefs of his time. Back then, it was believed that the Earth was the center of the universe and that everything revolved around the Earth. However, Galileo discovered that everything actually revolved around the sun, which was revolutionary at that time, mostly because it contradicted the already pre-established notions made by the church. One thing that really solidified my admiration for Saga is her level of understanding when it comes to Alan. Alan rewrote her reality, taking away her loved ones. Anyone would be in their right to be livid with Alan, to completely write him off and leave him to his own torment, but Saga doesn't do that. Yes, she does express frustration and anger towards him for what he did, but ultimately, especially after going to the dark place herself, players can see that she gets it. She comprehends what he went through and where he's coming from. Alan Wake 2 left quite an impression on me, as it was a story well told and well experienced. I had a great time revisiting an old universe, even if half the time I had no idea what was going on. And even now, as I write this script, I find myself still not fully grasping everything that is going on within the Alan Wake universe. I realized it's not a spiral, it's a black hole.
It's not a loop. It's a spiral.